Hey everybody, Anish Majumdar here, career coach to the fiercely ambitious, and you guys rely on me for the advice that you can't get anywhere else. If you've been following my videos for a while, you know that I'm about as far away from being the kosher corporate type coach or advisor as it's possible to get. I specialize in pulling those levers that other people are either afraid to pull or don't even know that they could pull in order to get the kind of outcome I'm looking for. I've been a hustler my entire life. Before I became a career coach, which is what I've been doing for over a decade now, working with the best of the best. Before doing that, I was a journalist for many years. Had no connections as a journalist. Had no cushy dad in an editorial job. I had to break in, And what I realized was, as a journalist, before that as a film and TV actor, which again I did successfully, I broke in with no connections, no money, nothing to speak of. When you're in that situation, you can't rely on what most people think you should do. You can't rely on quote-unquote good advice, because good advice is not good enough. And the doors for the prime opportunities aren't just going to be wide open there waiting for you. Even in this roaring economy, you've got to break through. And you've got to do things that other people are not willing to do, or frankly, just don't have the balls to do. So let me tell you about one of these situations that you should be aware of. I call it the state break, and let me give you a little background into it. This is something that I first learned studying Tony Robbins. He does this all the time. There's a great documentary, by the way, about him called I Am Not Your Guru, which is on Netflix. I do highly recommend you check that out if you have an interest in self-improvement or understanding how a really transformational coach works at that level. In that documentary, among many other examples, there's Tony talks to someone who has severe depression. Calls him up on stage, has him start talking about his story. You see that all written into this guy's face, the weight of what he's been dealing with. And Tony does something very surprising. Rather than play into that, he cracks a joke. I think it was about his shoes, about these ridiculous shoes that he has on, what are you depressed about? Was it the shoes? And it was just it's like a shock. You see it, right? His brain was totally not expecting that. And there's a reason why Tony is doing that. It's because when someone is playing a game, whether the game is deep depression, whether the game is I'm going to make you feel defensive, whether the game is I'm going to make you feel like just another candidate, right? If you do something radically different that completely, openly shatters that game, it's hard for that person to keep those two things in mind. It's hard for them to get back onto the track of what they were trying to do. That is what a state break is all about. And it's important that you understand that if the situation calls for it in hiring, in an interview, in a high-stakes situation, if you're trying to negotiate a deal, if you're trying to secure a consulting engagement for yourself, whatever it is, you've got to know that this is a card or a lever that you can pull. So let me go over some examples on what would be a situation where this would apply, a radical break in the state, a radical disruption in terms of what's going on, and what would some examples be in terms of how you would do that. So here's one, right? You're in a hiring situation. You're with some maybe low-level person in hiring, right? They're not engaging with you. They're not making eye contact with you. They are basically just whatever you say. It's like they're not even taking it in. They're just reciting a laundry list of follow-up questions, right? You're not making headway. You're not moving the interview to a more detailed place. You are just stuck in that zone. Or, how about this? You're in a meeting with a CEO, and this guy or this woman is pushing all of your buttons, making you feel defensive, making you feel stressed out, making you feel edgy, denying anything good that you're putting out there in favor of hitting you and playing that game. Or how about you're in a situation where you're in a group interview, and one person is just out to get you. You have the buy-in of everybody else in that room, but this one person, everything that is going to come out of this person's mouth is something that is designed to make you look bad for whatever agenda this person might have. Okay, the quote-unquote good advice when it comes to hiring and getting a job will tell you no matter what, right? Be a good employee, keep your head down, answer as best as you can, keep it going. Well, that's the worst thing you can do in these types of situations. If you are in a situation, and of course I'm not advocating this as a lead-off, right? This is not something that you lead off with. But if you're in a situation and someone is running a game on you like that, and it's pretty clear that there's no way that you can engage with that game and win the game, that is a situation and an opportunity for a state break, because you should not be a good employee in hiring. Let me make that absolutely clear. In fact, in your entire career, you should never be a good employee, because a good employee is a sucker, is going to get taken advantage of, if not now, somebody else. There is no benefit to being a company man. Your loyalty should be to your family, your loved ones, and yourself. It should never be to some corporate entity, okay? But even holding that aside, even if you take good pride in being that, okay, the hiring process is not the time for that. The hiring process is the time for you to be a strong, passionate advocate for yourself and a strong negotiator. And that's what breaking the state is all about. So in those types of situations, when it is clear that you can't continue engaging in that game, you've tried and it doesn't work, here are some examples of how you can break the state. Crack a joke. It doesn't have to be a good joke. Like, wow, you're really, pulling out the big guns here, or, I honestly never thought about that. That's, it's a little crazy. It doesn't have to be a good joke, but just cracking a joke can be a great way to break that state and force someone to engage on it in a different way, especially if you're with someone who's doing their best because they've been taught this, that in hiring you're not supposed to engage. Total BS, and they're not engaging with you. Crack that joke, right? Make a little notice about what's going on with them. Notice, like, call out the elephant in the room. That's another one as well. If both of you guys or the other party is dancing around something, call it out. If you know that the position you're going out for, they've hired multiple people for it, and the game that is being run on you is one that's just so risk averse there's no way that you can do it, call out the elephant in the room. I do notice, and having done my research here, I know you guys have had a couple of false passes here, and I want you to understand, that's not going to be me here. You're calling out the big issue there rather than continuing to dance around it and play this game. Take a powerful alternate stand. This is something that a lot of people don't do. Even people who have good experiences in the hiring process, a lot of times they get rejected in the end, not because they did anything wrong, but because when they leave the interview room, the people who are in there at this company, they're like, yeah, he was good, she was good, a little too good, no? A little too perfect, So avoid that and break the state if necessary by really overtly taking, a differing stand. Essentially what we're doing is saying no. And that terrifies a lot of people, but it can be your strength. To be like, if you guys are talking about something and it doesn't work, be like, look, I really just want to make it clear because I'd like to move on here. I think going down that direction is a mistake. I would not do that. That oftentimes will shut it down. It will shut it down. And sometimes that's what you need to do. Get back to the why. That's another great way to break the state. What's the purpose here? What are you trying to accomplish? Let me just help you out here. Let's just get to where you're trying to get here with this questioning, because I'm not really sure I understand where you're coming from. So what's the purpose here? How does this relate to this role, right? How does this relate to the challenges you guys are facing? I'm not really seeing the connective tissue there. In other words, if you feel like you're on the defensive especially, flip it over to them. You tell me, why? Why is this beneficial? Why should we do this? How does this make sense? I don't see it. I don't understand it. That can be a very powerful way to snap people out of it. And absolutely, that applies for anyone. Just as a little tip, don't ever be intimidated by someone with some job title or some salary range or some highfalutin history, okay? And we're all just people here, and we all are trembling into our boots for certain situations, okay? Same thing goes for everybody. So don't be afraid to call out anybody if the situation warrants for it, and especially if they're running some kind of a game that requires a state break like this. Provide a counter assessment. This is sort of related to the differing stand there. Instead of if it's more than just I think that's a wrong mistake, show out an alternate path. Look, I think I understand where you're coming from. I don't think that's the right way to go. Here's what I see. And if you want someone who's going to do that, I'm sure there's many people like that. If you want someone who has a more pedigreed background, who has spent 10 years doing nothing but this job, I'm sure you're interviewing people like that, right? I'm sure you're doing that. but here's what I have to offer. Here's a vision that I have to offer that could have only happened by my journey. And I hope that that resonates with you. Communicate that alternate point of view. That's a wonderful way to take charge of this situation and run it to a different outcome. Admit the worst fear. Whatever that big worst fear is. Look, maybe this is going to take me out of the running for it. I don't know. But it looks to me that we're talking about it, so let's just talk about it. Okay, this is what I see. All right, this is where I see. This is what I don't have right now. It's a priority for me, but this is what I can bring to you, and hopefully we can move beyond that, move past it. What do you think about that? Does that resonate with you? These are all ways that you can really change things up here. Ask some questions as well, push, figure out those ways. But understand, if you are faced with a situation in hiring where there is no way that you can continue down that path and have a good outcome, break the state. Break it. Just break it all the way down, because at the very least, you may not know what it's going to look like. You may not know what the interaction is going to look like at the end of that state break, but you know that this is a failure, right? And you know that going down this path is not going to work. So you are creating a different chance and a different outcome. And in most cases, for a lot of people, all they know to do is how to play one or two games, right? You disrupt that game and you find a way that you guys can move forward together on the other side. It's a tremendous way to bond someone to you and see you as an ally. For me, some of the most amazing relationships I've had with clients, initially we've chatted and it's been like that. They're running their own game. They've been inside of their negative space for so long that they have no idea what to do. And whatever they think that they want, they want reassurance, they want this. What they want is an excuse to say, hey, what you were doing is right. Sometimes the most productive client relationships I've had have started from a place where I've been like, you're totally wrong. That was, of the 10 things you could have done, you picked the wrong thing. That's okay. Because we've all done dumb things. I've done every dumb mistake under the book before doing things like this. Trust me. As Dave Ramsey says, I have a PhD in DUMB. We all do. That's okay. But understand, we're not going to continue down that path. And I'm not going to reassure you going down that path, because that's the wrong path. So we're going to take a torch to it, burn it to the ground. We're going to, scatter the ashes respectfully, and then we're going to move on. And that happens, and you think that, oh my gosh, no way this person will come around. Sometimes a person doesn't know what they want until you give them what they want that they were not expecting. And the state break can be like that. It can really move past an impasse in a powerful way and give you a heck of a lot more status as you go through it. Thank you guys so much for your time. I hope that has been helpful and useful to you. Take this to heart. Keep it as your trump card as you go through there and hustle for that better life. I know you can do it. Keep the questions coming. Follow me on LinkedIn. Follow me on my website, helloanish.com. Engage with me. Let me know what's up with you, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.